Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Soraya. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing well.
Nice.
Remember when we started this podcast, our whole thought was that we were going to play songs and tell stories and anecdotes about them?
I seem to recall that conversation.
Yes, yeah. Fortunately, we've been able to talk to a lot of wonderful, wonderful artists that we love and adore, and that's been really fun. But on this episode, we're going to go back to that sort of with a twist.
Okay, what's the twist?
The twist is you haven't heard these songs before.
Okay, I'm game.
So you're familiar with these artists, but these are some songs that that you're not super familiar with, and was influenced by a podcast that I used to listen to that doesn't. They're not still producing this podcast, but it was called Songs for Jenna. And this podcast was this guy named Ryan playing indie rock songs for his sister, and it was her first reactions after listening to these songs.
Okay.
So I wanted to play a few songs for you and get your first reactions.
Sounds good.
And what we decided to do is go for some songs that were released on Voxx Records, and we've talked about that being kind of like a cousin scene from the Paisley Underground. I don't know, second or third cousin. I don't know. But Voxx was a label that was founded in 1979, and it was a subsidiary of Bomp Records by label owner Greg Shaw. And it was a specialty label for 60s influenced bands in the 80s, mostly in the 80s. And they put out about, I don't know, somewhere about 100 releases, roughly. And it was, 60s style garage and psychedelic inspired music. And a little bit about Greg. So he was a fanzine publisher, a music historian, and a record producer, born in January 29th, 1949 in San Francisco. And unfortunately, he passed away on October 19th, 2004 in Los Angeles. But yeah, he was the founder of Bomp Records and Voxx Records. And Voxx had a lot of fun stuff on it. More garagey for the most part, but there's 3 bands that we were going to focus on today that I'm going to play you some songs, and I can't wait to hear what you think of these.
Okay.
All right, so should we get started?
Why not? Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
A podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a grooviar.
Let's get groovy. All right. So my thought was to play you 3 songs by 3 bands. So 3 by 3, if you will. And the first band that I wanted to talk about is a band called The Steps, spelled Steppes. And I'm sure you've heard of all 3 of these bands, but I know you're not super familiar with them, so this should be fun. The Steps released 6 albums on Voxx, actually, and they were a psychedelic group formed in the early 1980s, mainly from 2 brothers, John and David Fallon, who were from Ireland, but they were spending time in Ireland and LA, so they were pretty much LA based. But the other main members of the band were drummer Jim Bailey and guitar player Jim Gilman. And that first song I'm going to play you was actually not on Voxx. It's the only song that wasn't on Voxx, but I consider them a Voxx band because they did put out 6 albums on Voxx. But the first song that we're going to listen to is from their first release, and it was an 8-song mini LP released in 1984 on Mystic Records, so that was more of a punk label.
Okay.
And this is the first song on side 2. At the time, they had a different drummer than Jim Bailey. This drummer is listed as Dante. And this song actually has real dark subject matter, but it's a real upbeat melody, and the progression is really fun. And it was written by the Fallon brothers, John and David, and it's got David singing on lead vocals. John and David both switched off on lead vocals, but this one's David. But anyways, the song is called It's the Real Time, and we're going to play it and see what you think. Here we go.
he couldn't go beyond with the pressures of the day. Oh no, he didn't try. Well, you know I can't see why he lost all his confidence. Oh no, and it's the real time. It's the real time, and it's the real time. I'm scared. And Daddy's coach is shooting dopey eyes, and we won't see him anymore. Oh no, it's just as well. Well, I hope he's happy in hell, because that's all that he deserves. Oh no, he said, I don't think you'll ever see me. Don't think you'll ever see me again and again. Oh, it's the real time, and it's the real time, and it's the real time. I'm scared. And my first trial, boy, you gotta walk some miles to keep the truth from yourself. Oh no, wait!
First impressions.
I like it.
You like it? Yay.
So one of the first things that jumped out at me was that deep bass line at the very, very start.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, where am I going? And then I remembered that you said it was an upbeat tune. And I said, because this sounds deep and dark. And then I hear it. And man, you're starting to, I don't know, maybe our years of friendship are starting to rub off on you, and you know the things that I like. And it was that harmony in the beginning that led me into the song, and then boom, the guitars, this kind of jangly guitar. Now, I have to admit, the way that you and I record, sometimes I can hear clearly the lyrics, and sometimes I'm trying to listen really hard. So can you tell me what the topic of this song is? Because I started writing down lyrics and I'm trying to connect the dots.
Well, some of the lines were, it talks about a relationship with a father, and it doesn't sound like it's a very good relationship. And I think it sounds like the father has some issues, because I think he says, in Daddy's coat, he's shooting dope. Yeah, we won't see him anymore.
Okay.
And then the author says, it's just as well. I hope he's happy in hell. So,
okay.
So it sounds like they didn't have a good relationship, and I don't know if the father OD'd or had a drug problem and left, but it doesn't sound good. But it's pretty heavy and dark, the subject matter. But
yeah, it was that line. It's the real time. I'm scared. I'm like, okay, where so like the lyrics and the beat of the song don't match, but that's a good song.
Yay.
That's a good song. I liked it.
Okay, so let's go on to another Step song, and this one is from their next release, their first Voxx release. It was their 1986 album called Drop of the Creature, also written by the Fallon Brothers, and it's got monster guitar leads. And at this point, they get a little heavier and definitely more psychedelic. And it's funny, the title of the song is A Play on Wordsworth. So I thought that was kind of funny. But definitely heavier, more psychedelic. And here we go. This is A Play on Wordsworth, the lead-off track from Drop of the Creature.
Only
All right, that was sort of an epic little piece.
Woo! I want you to see what I just wrote. And that song is a freak out, man.
It is. It is.
Wow. Okay, there's a lot going on in that song. And I just felt like I heard 6 different bands. So this song has like these moments where it's like a heartbeat.
Oh.
So like it starts with that bass line, and the first thing I wrote down was it reminds me of a Doors song.
Oh, nice.
And it's like boom, boom, and like it leads you in, and then it's just squealing guitars and wah-wah pedals and drums, and like it's literally a freak out because it's everywhere. And then, but then there are these moments that it kind of brings you back in. That's why I say it's like a heartbeat, because it's like sometimes your heartbeat can go really fast or really slow, but it always finds a way to kind of regulate itself, right?
Nice.
So like you start out with that bass line, and then when they're freaking out, then there's that really quick strum, like brrrring,
Yeah.
and it's like bring you back to the moment, and then they'll freak out, and then it's quick strum, brrrring, and just shoosh. Wow.
Very cool.
So let me tell you, and then that end jam reminded me of The Who,
Oh, yes.
where I'm like, wait, something's gonna get smashed now. And then, boom, the voice brings me back. I mean that there's a lot going on, and I even wrote down, like I kept thinking who it was reminding me of. So look at the names I wrote down: Doors, Seeds, Birds, Iron, Butterfly.
Wow, nice. Yes.
But granted, that's me and my crazy brain.
No, I think those are all...
Throwing these names out there, but wow, look, the difference between the 2 songs. Wow.
Yeah.
And how much time between the 2 releases?
So the first one was in 84 and the second one was in 86. So a couple years.
Not that long though, but wow.
Yeah.
Showed a different side. Very cool.
Nice. Very cool. Well, we're going to do one last song by The Steps. And I'll mention that The Steps are one of probably like a dozen bands that I've obsessed over my lifetime. It still are a huge obsession for me. But so I'm glad that I get to play a couple songs. So the last song that we're going to hear is called The One Thing. And out of all the 9 songs that we're playing today, this is the one that I handpicked especially for you, Soraya. So I'm really anxious to hear what you think of this. This is from their next album. It's called Studio, which they spelled Stewdio. It's kind of a bad name, and it has kind of a bad cover. It's got a cover of a pot with like a stew in it and a guitar neck hanging out of it and guitar wires. So they're kind of playing off stew and studio together. It's kind of bad, but it's a great album. It's a really, really good album, and at least for me. And this is the lead-off track, and this one came out in 88, so it's a couple years later. And I feel like this album is a combination of the first EP and the second, harder one with Drop of the Creature. And they had plenty more albums after this that they released on Voxx. They had a different drummer on this album. Instead of Jim Bailey, a guy named Eric Denning. And then after this album, they go back to drummer Jim Bailey. But anyways, this one's called The One Thing, and handpicked for you, The Steps, The One Thing from Studio.
Childhood friend, but then we broke apart
Okay, when I said I handpicked it, it's not because of the subject matter.
I
Just
was
so
gonna say.
just the melody. It kind of reminded me of a Monkees tune. But anyways, that's why I handpicked it for you.
You know, first of all, I love that line. If there's one thing we can't agree on, is that we don't agree at all. I'm like, if he picked that because of that,
I
we
did
need
it.
to have a talk.
I did it.
But no, you know what, you hit on one of the things that I wrote down is that it reminds me of early to mid '60s pop with these very sweet harmonies and this driving guitar, kind of happy peppy up guitar melody, and that bridge is really cool.
Yeah.
That bridge is really cool.
I like that bridge.
Okay, so at the very, very beginning when they start, the first thing I wrote down is it reminds me of Jan and Dean.
Oh.
So when Jan and Dean, when they sing, it's this high range, it's like a higher range, but very much in sync. And so I'm like, okay, so Jeff's gonna have to tell me which of the brothers was singing lead because they're obviously complementing one another. And then I wrote down, it's a Monkees song, but in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that one.
Oh, cool.
I think of the three that you played, I have to say right now, a play on Wordsworth is kind of leading the pack.
Wow.
Just because it was such a freak out. That one was so different.
And I actually didn't think you would like that one.
Well,
thought...
right now it's the one that stands out the most, maybe because they threw so much at me.
Yeah.
And then but literally right behind it is the one thing, and then it's the real time is probably the third. I mean, I really enjoyed them all. I have to admit I was a bit weary because I wasn't sure what you were going to play.
Right.
And you told me you can't know, you can't look, and I'm just going to pick them. And I said, okay, so this was like the most raw and pure reaction you were ever going to get.
And that was the goal, right? That's what we were hoping.
Shoot, so now I want to go get the steps and that horrible LP studio with the horrible image, but if the songs are that good, I want it.
Very cool, very cool. All right, well, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Still a Voxx band, but we're going to move on to the Telltale Hearts.
Okay.
So, and I know that you know of them. The Telltale Hearts were from San Diego, and they went through a lot of members. They had kind of a rotating member. The core group that I know was organist Bill Calhoun, who also did mouth harp or harmonica. David Clouden was their drummer. Eric Bacher, or it's Bacher, I say Bacher, was their guitar player. Mike Stacks is their bass player, who also puts out the fanzine The Ugly Things, which is well-renowned, that fanzine. He's in a band called The Loons now, and he's done quite a few other things. Mike is a big deal in San Diego. And singer Ray Brandis. They also, other people that went through the band, Carl Rusk, John McKinney, Par Casola, Peter Meisner, and Ron Swart. But the core five that I knew were the ones that I mentioned. And the band released their full-length debut album in 1984 on Voxx. And they also had a 6-song mini LP in 1985 on Voxx called The Now Sound of the Telltale Hearts. And quite a few years later, they put out a compilation in 1994 of songs from both of those releases, plus some unreleased tracks and live tracks, which was called High Tide, Big Noses, and Pizza Faces. And from what I understand, that at least part of that title came from a review or a comment by Paula Pierce from the Pandoras, who made a comment about them saying that they had big noses and pizza faces. So that's my understanding of where that came from. But anyways, I saw the band a few times back in the day. Once at Frat House at San Diego State, and once opening for Jesus and Mary Chain in San Diego, which was really cool. But they have a different feel, more rock R&B based, But so I'm curious to hear what you think about these guys. The first song that I'm going to play is from their debut full-length album. And this was written by their singer, Ray Brandis. And it's the lead-off track from the debut full-length album. And it's all of these songs are also on that compilation that I mentioned. But this one's called Crawling Back to Me. A little bit different than the Steps, you'll hear.
Dang. Any song that starts out with maracas is pretty much a bomb tune.
Yay.
Like, I love the lead vocals on this song. Yeah. I love that guy's voice.
Yeah, me too.
Ooh, at one point, I just wrote down that the vocals feel like Eric Burden.
Yep, that's the first thing I thought of too. The Animals.
He's got this real soul to his voice. I really, really liked it, and the guitars on that song, the guitar on that track is bomb. That's really, really good.
Very cool. Ooh. Yes. Ooh. So Ray went on to put out some solo records too. So the singer, those are pretty cool too. Worth checking out. I think you nailed it when you said he's got some soul in him for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So the next song is also from that debut full-length LP. This one's called Forever Alone. This song was written by the organist Bill Calhoun and the bass player Mike Stax. This one has a little bit different feel, not so energetic, but I really like the melody on this one. So this one is Forever Alone.
I woke up this morning and I looked for you, but I knew that you were there. I remember the day that you left, you said you knew I wouldn't care. And so I sleep inside my lonely room. Until you come back, I'll be forever alone. The sky was grey and my thoughts were black as I walked down the avenue. As I stared at the world from the lifeless bridge, my mind was filled with you. And I knew you would never love me again. my life, babe, and finally get you out of my brain. I can't stand it no more, girl. Yeah, I gotta stop it once and for all. This big and lonely place, girl, it can't be filled. I gotta fall. You wake one morning and you look for me, but you know I won't be there. Maybe then you'll know why I went away. I guess I didn't care. I just couldn't face the morning, girl. Just couldn't come back. I'll be forever alone.
A little different vibe than Crawling Back to Me.
Very different. Very, very different. And the mix of, there's like a mix of influences there, because at one point when it's just the lead vocalist and it has this very kind of somber tone, you're going to think I'm nuts. I'm telling you, this is my crazy brain. I blame the quarantine. It reminded me a little of parts of the song 96 Tears, question mark and the Mysterians.
Yeah.
I don't know, this kind of like, I don't know, it's just kind of this desolate vocal. And then you've got that organ that is, you can't forget it, right?
Yeah.
It comes in like, boom, and it just signals that change. And then those guitars just take this song to a whole other level.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers in that song that I wasn't expecting. I'll be honest.
Very cool. Okay. Very cool. So,
and again, any song that uses a maraca that prominently, check in my book.
Very cool. Very cool. This one, the next song, has the mouth harp. So, which they used quite a bit in some of their songs. I did want to mention that when they put out that compilation 10 years after their heyday, if you will, that they did a couple reunion shows. I think in San Francisco was one of them. They did one in San Diego that I got to attend at this place in San Diego called the Casbah. And I just remember a lot of they were just as good then 10 years later, and so much energy. You can imagine these guys on stage hearing the music, that they just tons of energy, with the maraca and the mouth harp and Mike Stacks on bass, the drums going crazy, Eric on guitar, just a lot of fun. But this next song called It's Not Me, written by the organist Bill Calhoun, who also does a mean harp, including a harp solo, mouth harp. This one's from the 1985 mini LP, The Now Sound of Telltale Hearts, and it's got this Bo Diddley kind of drum intro part, which is pretty cool. And you mentioned layers on Forever Alone. This one has quite a few different layers too, and a couple different time signatures, so the timing changes up quite a bit on the song. But last song that we're going to hear today from the Telltale Hearts, from the Now Sound of the Telltale Hearts, It's Not Me.
the shadows hide your laughter. Then you'll know now what you're after. Oh babe, I need you so, but there's a part of me that you'll never know, and I can't go on hiding myself. Oh babe, I love you so, but there's a part of me that you'll never know, and I can't go on fooling myself. It's not me that you love. It's not me you're thinking of. It's not me, it's just a game that you play. It's not me that you love. It's not me you're thinking of. It's not me, it's just a game that you play.
All right, so that's one song.
Dang. Whew.
First
All right.
thoughts.
First of all, I wrote down, where has this band been all my life?
Oh,
How have I not paid more attention? I really like the lead singer's voice. It's haunting. It's hypnotic. I just loved everything about that.
yay!
And it's that Bo Diddley beat. You know, I in my head I'm like, hey, Bo Diddley, dun dun dun
Yeah.
dun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really really good arrangement, and they threw a lot of stuff at me.
Yeah.
I like them.
So
I like it.
what'd you think of the harmonica harp
Oh,
in there?
first of all, the guy's insane. It was really good, and it adds. You know, sometimes you can think, oh, that was a little much. No, it added character to the song, and it was a necessary component. I liked it.
Ah, very cool. Very cool. So we're gonna switch gears again.
Okay.
Going from the Steps to Telltale Hearts to the Things. So the Things, I feel like, are the closest to the Paisley Underground out of the bands that we're listening to today. I saw the Things play with the Pandoras at UCSD back in the day, and it was a really, really good bill. The Things are an LA band. They released 3 albums in the mid to the late 80s. Their first 2 were on Voxx, and their last on Epitaph Records, but we're just going to focus on songs from the 2 Voxx releases. The Things were comprised of Stephen Crabtree, who is the vocalist, guitarist, and keyboardist, and Red Cross drummer Roy McDonald. Before Roy went into Red Cross, was the drummer for the Things. drummer and percussionist. The bass players changed on the first album, which is called Colored Heaven with a U, like it's like they're an English band. Pete Rauch was the bass player and also sang on that album, sang some backing vocals on it. And then on their next album, which is called Outside My Window, Bob Weir was the bass player and Larry Klein was the second guitarist. There's a 2-part documentary on YouTube that Stephen Crabtree, the singer, did. It's called Not Everyone Makes It. It's really interesting. It's about close to 4 hours, 3.5 hours in total, but it's broken up into 2 parts. And in the first part, he talks about a couple things that are really interesting to me. He talks about being influenced by the Paisley Underground, which is really cool. He saw the 3 o'clock at a show, and it really influenced him. That was really cool. And another part it's really sad. He talks about when Roy McDonald left the Things. I think he went on to do other things. I don't know if he was going on to the Muffs or to the Red Cross or whatever, but it really hit him hard because it sounded like they had a really good relationship and a good musical relationship, and it was really tough on him. So I recommend that, at least the first part that relates to the Things and the early days. Again, that's called Not Everyone Makes It on YouTube. But the first song that we're going to hear is the lead-off track from the 1984 debut album from the Things, Colored Heaven. And this song's called Eyes of a Child. And to me, it definitely feels like it's Paisley Underground influenced, for sure. Eyes of a Child.
Someone calling me, and I can't seem to hear. There's someone calling me, and I can't seem to hear. I saw your eyes. Someone on my mind, and she still is hanging around. There's someone following me, but my dreams should not be found. I saw your eyes.
Yay!
That intro guitar lick, very Rain Parade-esque.
Yep. Yep.
But wow, I really like that, and yeah, I really like this song just overall. I just kept writing down connection, like a lot of things connect to Paisley Underground, but this band is really unique too, and that the lead vocal, that's a different kind of voice.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I like it.
I like Steve's voice on that, and that part towards the end of the song with the bass where it goes doon 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 doon. It kind of reminded me of Michael Quercio a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyways, oh cool. I'm glad you like that one.
That's a good track.
I'm glad you like that one. So next up, what I have for you is the title track, Colored Heaven, and it's the last song on side A of their debut album. And this one reminds me of the Rainy Day compilation. Remember when we talked about that one quite a while ago? And on that Rainy Day compilation, there's the song John Riley, the English folk song with Michael Quercio singing. About 30 seconds into this song, Colored Heaven, I can totally picture Michael singing "A fair young maid, all in her garden," but just part of the song just brings me back to that Rainy Day compilation, specifically that song, and only for like 2 seconds of this song, about 30 seconds in. But this one is much more subdued song than "Eyes of a Child." So I'm curious to see what you think of this one, Colored Heaven. How about that? The solo is on an acoustic guitar.
Whew. That the vocals on this song, they're so dreamlike. They're just, and I totally get the connection that you made to Rainy Day. It's definitely there. There's something about this song I can't put my finger on. And I think it's because I'm trying to figure out. This song, I wrote down, it reminds me of another song. But right now it's not jumping out at me. But it sounds like an early 80s song.
Oh,
when was
okay.
this recorded?
So it was released in 84.
Well, that explains it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm trying to give different aspects of the band by pulling different types of songs, like not all the same up-tempo kind of thing. It's funny because it mentions Paisley's in the song, Peace and Love,
Yeah.
Hashish, and it's like...
And Peace and Love, yeah, I got that. I think what it's reminding me of a British band of the early 80s.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what it is. It's reminding me of, it'll come to me. Yes.
Nice.
I have to admit though, I like Eyes of a Child more than this song.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, now I'm really curious, especially in light of our little discussion about the steps earlier. I'm very curious what you think of this last song that we're going to play. This one is the title track off their 1986 Voxx release. It's called Outside My Window. Again, it's the title track. And like the steps, they got a little heavier and a little more psychedelic. And you happen to like a play on Wordsworth, so I'm wondering what you think about this one. It's a little bit heavier. It's a little over 5 minutes, so you'll put your seatbelt on, grab something to drink. Yeah. And what's curious about this one is after the raucous guitar solo, the song breaks down into like a little acoustic piece and like halftime. And I'm just wondering how much Jethro Tull were they listening to when they wrote this song. So let me know what you think of this one. This is the title track from the 86 Voxx release, Outside My Window.
circle. Either way, she will survive. Outside my window, I see the wind blow.
How about Roy McDonald on drums on that one?
First of all, those drums are pretty sick on this song. But, what I liked about this song is the change in melody, because it goes hard, 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 and then it drifts off. It's like a really intense dream where, it's like things are happening fast and furious, and then you just kind of drift off back to sleep. I love the guitars on this.
Oh, nice.
And that wah-wah pedal was working overtime.
I guess in '86 they were selling a lot of those.
Dang, dude. But it was like wah-wah and squealy guitar.
Yeah.
Call me nuts.
Uh-oh. Now what?
The vocals on this one remind me so much of Michael Corsia.
Really?
There's something. It's not as high as his range, but there's something really ethereal about that song. I don't know.
I can kind of hear that. I definitely can.
At least in the slower parts.
Yeah.
There's something about it. And I gotta say, Jeff, if I had to pick between the three, it'd go Outside My Window, Eyes of a Child, and Colored Heaven.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That is not at all what I expected, actually.
See?
Going into this.
You never can predict.
I can't.
No, this song especially, it gives me a lot to think about. And that's why I liked it, because there was something. It's like I was discovering something new with each new piece of the song.
Oh.
I liked it a lot.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. I would have thought the more poppier Eyes of a Child would have been.
Yeah.
That's what I would have thought. But yeah, I'm glad you like the heavier songs too, because I was leery about even playing those between that one and the Steps. So I tried to throw in some different aspects of the band, like I mentioned earlier, of all three bands actually. So I'm hoping that maybe someday we can dig a little deeper into these bands and their catalog. Someday.
Okay.
They're bands that I really like. And like I said, I consider these kind of Voxx bands. They had a lot of their releases were on that label. And again, that label put out a lot of bands during the 80s that were heavily influenced by the 60s. I think you can hear that throughout most of these songs that I played today.
Right.
So, and then not only in songs, but in what they wore, their fashion, their just general aesthetic sense. When you look at the album covers, they all have a very 60s kind of vibe to them. So I'm glad that Greg Shaw put out the subsidiary label and highlighted a lot of bands. There's tons more bands other than these three that we just picked at. And of course we had the early members from the Pandoras, and that first record, It's About Time, also came out on Voxx, and literally dozens more bands. So a very cool label. So I'm glad. Thank you so much for doing this. I was really curious what you would think of these, and I know you've heard a song or two by all of these bands. So
at least one or two, but
yeah,
you know, I don't think any extended listen. So
nice.
But yeah, you've given me now 3 things I need to look for.
Or at least one thing, 1 Steps, and 1 Telltale Heart.
At least, if not more.
Yay. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, that was fun for me.
Good.
Yay. So we'll see what happens up next. We have a few different people that we want to talk to coming up, and a couple more ideas with just us two. So we'll see what comes up next on Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme. You never know.
Stay tuned, folks. You never know.
You never know.
All right. And then after all this great music and freakouts, gente, a groovear.
Groove on, Paisley people.